Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Wow, the dulcet tones of Mr. Jonathan Green just introducing us. I never thought I'd live to ever be introduced by Jonathan Green. I'm all emotional, teared up. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's cool having him on there. It was funny because when I reached out to him, he was the first person I thought of. I'm like, we need a professional intro so that Sean and I just don't come in here looking like a pack of idiots. And I reached out to him and he said, yeah, let me do something. It'll take me half an hour. I'm like, take your time. And next thing I know, like 6 different files showed up. So we have a few different ones that we can use. And now big thanks to Jonathan for doing that. It's kind of cool. And as you say, just something about having a British accent kind of gives us a little more potency, should I say.
Yeah, especially with his and the versions he has. He goes from Benny Hill to Monty Python in some of his deliveries. So it's pretty funny that he gave us a nice range for that. So
yeah,
it's cool.
It's very cool. So what do we got going today? I think we have our first ever returning guest in the form of Kyle Wyman, who's our Ducati superbike rider in the series. He's 10th in points right now, and when we get him on here in a second, he's going to tell us about probably the best 2 days he's had, at least so far, with the Ducati, because he was able to do a big test at pit race and get that thing dialed. He's got some new electronics. He got some help from the Italian Ducati Corsa factory. So yeah, I think he's going to be excited. So I'm sure that Sean Bice has his normal little some lead-in story that he Googled from somewhere that he's going to be able to share with us. So why don't you get started with that, Sean?
This isn't even a Google situation. This one I'm going to pull from my heritage of growing up in New York State, the same state that Kyle is from. And one of the reasons why I was originally attracted to Kyle as a rider back in the day, quite a long time ago, when he was racing flat track. Well, that was part of it. Yeah, I was trying to be a little shy about it. But yeah, he's a handsome guy, no doubt about it. But the fact that he's an Empire Stater like me makes it even better. So, but I've lived in a couple of different states, and there always seems to be these towns and cities in these states that the spelling of the city is not pronounced like you'd think it would be. Like an example, I lived in New Hampshire, and there's a town in northern New Hampshire that's spelled Berlin, and you would think it's Berlin, but in New Hampshire they call it Berlin, and I guess they don't want to reference Germany or something.
Do they have a wall?
No, there's no wall. Well, they did have an old man in the mountain, but that thing fell off the mountain there a few years ago, which that's a whole other tragic story to talk about. But I'm sure you've heard of the town up in northwestern Ohio where they have the flat track Lima. And of course, lima beans. Well, it's not pronounced Lima like the city in Peru. And there's a town near Macedon, New York, which is near where Kyle is from. And it's spelled Chili. And of course, Paul, being that you're so close to the Mexican border, how would you pronounce Chili?
Chili.
Yeah, and you would think, but they pronounce it Chili. And the weird thing is there's actually a Chili's restaurant there. And my mom and dad think because there's a Chili's in Chili, they thought the name of the restaurant is Chili's. So whenever they see a Chili's restaurant anywhere, they go, oh, there's one of those Chili's. And it's like they're completely whacked out about the fact that they thought it was apparently named after the town or originated in the town of Chili, New York, which I'm pretty sure is pretty close to Kyle, but we'll ask him when we get him on here. So.
Now, when you correct them, how do they take it?
They don't. Oh, you can't correct him. They just look at me and go, "It's pronounced Chili." It's like you don't argue with that at all. So I just let it go. So it's fine.
I wonder if there's one in Lima.
There might be. I don't know why. I would think in Lima they would probably pronounce it that way. Although it's got to be weird. Like, are there Taco Bells in Mexico? I mean, I don't know. Right. They'd probably be offended by that.
And out here we have, Hispanic names for places, obviously. And like, it's like El Cajon, somebody comes from out of town, they might say El Cajon and things like that, So we have that, but it's a little different than the Chili.
Chai Lai, New York. Yeah.
Well, let's talk to Kyle Wyman because again, as I said at the start of this thing, he's I think he's pretty excited. We've been following him on social media, and I get him to send me a couple of videos, which are really cool because it shows him at speed on the bike at pit race where they were testing, and also from reading his social media, he's obviously excited because he got to spend a few full days on the bike and had some help from Ducati Corsa in Italy, and it sounds like you're pretty happy, Kyle. Things went well for you.
Yeah, I'm real happy. Everything's been really good. Appreciate you guys having me on. Just yesterday, just kind of decompressing from what's been more than 2 days, really. My guys came in Friday, and we spent all weekend finishing the install on the electronics, and the engineer from Italy came over, Fausto from Ducati Corsa. He was with us all day Sunday, drove down to the track Sunday night, and 2 long days at the track. So we're all pretty beat, pretty whooped, but it was a great 2 days. We had no hiccups, just steady progress from start to finish.
That's great. Now, Kyle, I've got 2 questions for you, Kyle. I had to jump in and ask you this before we got too far afield. First of all, how far do you actually live from Chai Lai, New York, and is it pronounced that way?
It is pronounced Chai Lai, and I'm about 20 minutes away. Like, I'm on the east side of Rochester, and Chai Lai's on the west side of Rochester.
So you're almost Chai Lai-ian then.
Chai Lai again, yeah.
Whenever we had high school sports, I went to Penfield, and we would always play Gates Chai Lai. That was kind of the high school was the town of Gates and the town of Chai Lai together. So it was always Gates Chai Lai.
Do you remember what their team nickname was?
Probably just losers.
The Hot Peppers or anything? Losers. Losers. That's even better. All right. The other thing I want to ask you. So in the beginning of the year, when you announced that you were going to be on a Ducati, and by the way, you do a great job with social media. You were really good about interacting with the fans, and I know it helps your program a lot. And of course, you've got the Kyle Wyman fan club that you're doing now, which is fantastic. But when you first announced it, and we supported it in social media as well, we tagged Ducati North America, and a few fans were like, it's not a factory effort. What are you talking about? And it always sort of bugged me because, even when it was Fast by Ferracci Ducati, it was still a team that ran the team, just like Kyle Wyman Racing is running this Ducati thing now. So when we said Ducati's back, it truly is. Well, now that you've got an engineer from Ducati in Italy coming over here to help you out, that's a pretty big deal for you. I would say that's a pretty good connection to the factory, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how far we've come in just 11 weeks since we got the bikes. And, when you look around the world and all the different teams and different series that are racing Ducatis, the new V4R, they pretty much all of them bought the kit Superbike, ordered it, a year ago. And we're kind of the team that said, we're going to take stock bikes and try to convert them to race bikes, which, we were kind of warned is going to be very, very difficult. But here we are 11 weeks later, and we do have support from Ducati North America. We do have support from Ducati Corsa in Italy, sending over engineers to help us get started, making sure we have all the tools we need to continue on the path of development. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
So explain to us and to the people listening, like when you go to a test like this and you're dealing with a new electronics package and you have a guy there from World Superbike helping, and he's talking to your electronics guy and he's talking to your crew chief, Gary, what is it like what kind of gains are we talking about? Are we just talking about with just how well the motorcycle actually runs? Are we talking about high level stuff like performance and traction control, or is it just all of that stuff together?
It's really all of it together. And I think one of the things I'm going to take away from this wholly is kind of like, how to look at a racing motorcycle as a big picture, what's important and what's maybe not so important. So for the first day, it's basically just educating Darren, my electronics guy, on how all of the strategies work, what sensors are used to calculate what's going on the bike to make changes, and trying to just get him up to speed on how the system works. So that's really the biggest thing for just getting the bike running. It's just my job to go out and do laps so they have data they can actually look at. Because if you don't have data, then you're just comparing to nothing. So, and we start, from the stock electronics, there's no real like easy tuning method for the Ducati. So, putting the Morelli on allows us to fuel map the bike by cylinder, get the thing all unlocked so we have full power where we need it. And, we started working on some of the strategies, but really the biggest difference for me, and this is the first 2 days I've ever spent on any sophisticated electronics like the Morelli system that all the factory teams have and the high level teams. The biggest difference is it doesn't necessarily make the bike any quicker per se. You might not actually go faster outright lap time, but it makes it a lot easier to do that lap time over and over again and be consistent. So that's what I'm taking away from it.
Okay, one of the burning questions I've got to ask you is, I think either you told me this or I read this in an interview or possibly on social media, but I think you had said that you had to keep the ignition key taped under the fuel tank because of the alarm system or something. Is that correct? And do you still have it that way?
That is correct. That's how we had it for the first 3 rounds because, we found it out the first day we started the bike. We obviously didn't have the key on it, anywhere near it. And as soon as I rode it out of the shop, the engine kept quitting. And it was because the key was out of range of the dashboard. So it uses the key as a immobilizer to know whether somebody's hotwired the thing or not. So yeah, we had the key duct taped to the underside of the fuel tank for the first 3 rounds to make sure I didn't have any false alarms.
So you didn't go to Pat Boys and buy the little magnet thing like that goes on the bottom of your car? It slides open and the key.
Team, Paul.
Oh, so it was duct tape.
Racer's tape makes it happen. It's funny. It's basically like a car that has a transponder chip in it, huh? You can't be too far. You have to have it near the ignition. So that makes perfect sense. But did you eliminate that during this test?
Oh yeah, that's gone now. There's full race systems on the bike, and yeah, we now have a race bike.
Oh, is that because it had a stock ignition on it, and now you got a magnetic Morelli that doesn't even use any of that stuff related to theft or stuff like that? Obviously, is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Gotcha. Okay.
Those keys don't work that well because Sean, I think I told you the story about me at Coda the first year we went there, right? Because it had that key that, you have in your pocket and you don't really need it. And you just shut the motor off with a push of a button. And I got to Coda like at 7 a.m. and we were late and they'd moved practice up. And so I saw Josh Hayes running. So I figured I ought to run. So I ran and we went through the whole day. And I got back to the parking lot at like 9 o'clock that night and my car was still running. So it ran from 7 a.m. to like 9 o'clock at night. And I had the key in my pocket. So it just goes to show that those things are, they may be sophisticated, but they don't necessarily do what they want. So I'm sure the rent-a-car company was, it still had low mileage. It just had high time.
It went through about 5 oil change intervals while it was sitting there. Probably. That's so bizarre.
Anyway, that's all another subject.
So Kyle, I have a question about the bike. You raced for a long time on the Yamaha, which we know has got the cross-plane crankshaft on it, which, as I understand it, was kind of to mimic a little bit like the way a Ducati puts the power to the ground. It's like a long kind of firing order or whatever, and it's a traction-related thing. So you rode that bike a long time, developed it, podiumed on it, got a second at New Jersey. Really did a lot with that bike. Tell us about early days on this Ducati. Does it feel at all like the Yamaha? Do you think it's got more potential? I mean, where do you think it's at?
Gosh, the power delivery feels similar, kind of off the corner. It has a similar sound and feel, but that's about all I can really compare. Everything else is really different. For starters, the Ducati has a counter rotating crankshaft. So it rotates opposite of the wheels, basically. So it helps cancel out a lot of the centrifugal force. So, all the MotoGP bikes have counter rotating cranks. So the bike turns really quick, in transitions. So that was something to adjust to. And then,
wow.
And then the other thing is that the bike, it redlines at 16.5 stock. And, I think the R1 redlines at like 14.6 or something. So, yeah. So,
wow, you can really rev the heck out of it then. Ducatis used to always be known for kind of being slow to turn because of the wheelbase on them, but they must have taken care of that. The wheelbase on this bike is fairly short, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a long bike, but the counter rotating crank helps mitigate some of that. And,
wow,
you get some stability out of it. So
when you first started riding it, I remember when we did comparison tests at Cycle News, it's like all the Japanese bikes, they didn't feel identical, obviously, but they all felt sort of the same. And when you get on the Ducati, you'd just be like, oh my God, this thing is completely different. Like the way it just feels when you sit on it. Is that still the case?
I would say not as much the case anymore. I think that this V4R is a lot closer to, a traditional, but it's still narrower because it's a V4,
Right.
So it's still narrow. It's not quite as narrow as the V2 was, of course, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the V2 or anything like that. So it's, it's definitely a different bike. And for me, it's just been like, I just dove into it so quick. It's like, well, here's the throttle and it shifts the same way. And I literally have the same brake system off the Yamaha and, just go figure it out.
It's funny when you showed up at VIR and you had a different fuel tank on it than the couple that you had before that. And I know for a fact, I don't know if you remember me actually talking to you about the fact that I thought the tank looked big and high. Well, the other day I saw that somebody said the same thing on social media and I was like, oh, please don't ask Kyle that because you don't feel that's the case on that bike, right?
No, I mean, it's bigger than stock. It looks bigger than a lot of other tanks. It's not that much bigger. Maybe those vertical lines I put in the livery make it look taller than it is.
Maybe,
but I can tuck in just fine with it. And we need the capacity. So, function before form.
And you don't have any worries about that anymore like you did. We had done a story about the fact that you were concerned that you were going to run out of gas. And I don't know if it ever happened with the tanks that you had before this, but that's completely behind you now. Is that correct?
Yeah, thankfully, all those issues are behind us for the most part. We got a couple little things we could, kind of quote unquote nice to have type of things, that we could change. But at this point, we're just kind of addressing the biggest problems first, and the electronics were the next thing.
So Kyle, from switching to obviously from riding Yamahas to riding Ducatis and basically being the only guy in the paddock with Ducati, what has that done to your fan base? Have you noticed a difference?
It's been a huge difference, really. It's it's really cool. I get messages like all the time, people saying, hey, I'm coming to MotoAmerica. Hey, I'm coming to Jersey this year because I want to see that Ducati run. And that's something special. That's something that you can't really measure that. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable, honestly. So yeah, I mean, the fan base has grown really. And I've tried to really be as, I guess, approachable, available. I'm trying to be able to show the behind the scenes of the team and what actually goes on. I mean, if people have been following me since day one when I uncrated these bikes, they've seen on social media every step of the process, and I think that's really what people want to see. So I try to keep that coming, and as much as I can when I have time to post it, and I'm not just sucked into the work, but it's been really good. It's, and I have the KW Army this year as if I didn't have enough going. So I started that, started that fan club, and people are, winning giveaway prizes and hanging out in the hospitality area and drinking coffee with me at the track. And this year's just been so good. And I think the series needed, a little extra, manufacture in there. And it's just, I'm happy to do it.
Kyle, throughout your road racing career and even your flat track career, and really you were brought up around a Harley Davidson dealership. Your mom owns Harv's Harley Davidson, which was your grandfather's, and I know you did flat tracking on Harleys and some road racing as well, quite a bit of road racing. And I always thought there was a little bit of a synergy between the Harley Davidson fans. They seem to like Ducatis okay. Do you see any of that, or do you have any of your old fans that maybe have come back? Have you sensed that, or am I emphasizing that too much?
I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot of crossover between Ducati fans and Harley fans, but I think that as far as how they relate to their own brand, they're very similar. Like Harley people are so diehard about it, and Ducati fans are the same way. It's more than, just a brand. It's like a lifestyle, like a culture, like, it's something so much deeper than that. It seems like, I think the coolest thing about the Ducati fans is that, if you had 10 people that rode a Yamaha and walked out of a dealership with one, how many of them watch MotoGP on the weekends?
Right.
maybe one. Right. Right. And of the 10 people that walk out of a Ducati dealership with a new Ducati, how many of them watch MotoGP?
Pretty much all of them.
Nine.
Yeah.
So that's been the really cool thing is that, I'm just like, there's just such a connection to racing through the Ducati brand. And, that's why I think it's so important that they're in our series and in what is their biggest market in the world, so it's just been, it's been awesome.
Have you had much of a connection with Ducati USA at all, or have you talked to those guys very much?
Yeah, a lot of, support actually coming from, talking a lot to Jason Chinnock, the CEO. He had me as a guest at Ducati Island at COTA, and we'll, I just actually got the email blast yesterday from Ducati North America talking about meeting Alvaro and Chaz and Kyle in the Ducati Island at Laguna, so it's coming together, and those guys, they see how hard MotoAmerica's helping push them out there, and they want to do the same. So, it's been really good.
That's great.
It's probably way, way, way too much for you to bite off here, but have you given any thought to doing a wild card ride at Laguna in addition to the MotoAmerica races, or is it just too much?
I'd be lying if it didn't get bounced around, it's obviously something we would like to do, but, with the commitment to the MotoAmerica series, it's a tremendous task to try to do both in a weekend, like we saw last year with Josh trying to do it. And, it's too early to say. Obviously it's probably something that we probably would have to commit to pretty soon if we were going to do it. I don't think it's in the cards this year, but you never know what could happen. It's funny. Fausto's like, "Oh, just come to Argentina." It's like, okay, yeah, that's about as easy as going to Europe, So, it's just something that I'm just looking forward to seeing what other opportunities come up. Already the growth of my team has accelerated, grabbed a gear this year. We've got really good people, and I think that down the road we would be capable of doing something like that successfully. So, let's try to get up front in our own series here first, and then we'll see if we can't try some of that later.
So if you win Road America, then we can expect you to be at Laguna and World Superbike?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Where have your lap times been? Let's just say at Pittsburgh, at pit race. Where are your lap times on that track now versus when you're there last on the Yamaha? Is it comparable?
Well, so we were doing a lot of comparing yesterday. Obviously, we set up the MotoAmerica chicane so that we could have very similar. Yeah, there's no way to really compare. So about 30 cones out there, looking and seeing where the holes were, where they put the curbing, so we could try to find the spot. And so last year, I think my best race time was 1:43.3. And yesterday at the end of the day, we were in the 42s. So,
oh, wow.
Pretty happy with that, obviously.
That's pretty great. And it would seem that possibly by the time we get to Pittsburgh, you'll probably be even faster because you'll have developed a bike even more, right?
Well, the one thing that's something that I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm learning is, whenever you show up to a racetrack you haven't ridden your bike at before with this system, the first session is basically create the map of the track for the system to be able to make changes. And you can't really make changes corner by corner until the second session. So when we come back to Pittsburgh later this year, we will have already done all that work to set up all the corners. So, this is obviously becoming a huge advantage to be able to do that. And, makes me want to try to figure out how to get on more tracks, maybe get on Jersey somehow before we end up racing there.
Now, you were able to do that test in conjunction with the Yamaha Champion School. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we did this week. So, usually I'm instructing, but I said, hey, can I bring my team out and just use the time that you guys are in the classroom to test? And they said, absolutely. They want to see me be as successful as possible. And it was pretty cool. They brought a class out and I was doing like a 16 lap stint yesterday, and they had the class all out in the vans, and they were going out and getting out at a corner and watching, going to another corner. And, hopefully they got a lot out of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure it was fun for them.
I want to ask you about coming up for Road America. One of the things that I'm always fascinated about your program, and I think it's a brilliant strategy. And I've actually told people that don't understand anything about racing about how you do this, where you elevate one of your many sponsors to a title sponsor status, depending on the weekend. I think you're still doing that this year. And what's your situation going into Road America? Who's your sponsor for that one?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go down the list. Like, so we started the first weekend. Atlanta was Lucas Oil was our title sponsor, and then we went to COTA with SC Project USA with their exhaust and Motivation USA. They're based in Austin, and we had Indy Motorsports Ranch, which is the local track that I'm a member at in Arizona. And now for Road America, we're gonna have Genuine Broaster Chicken as our title sponsor.
Oh, wow. Which was on your helmet, but it's going to be it's going to be on the bike in a prominent place.
Yep. So those guys have stepped up to do, full time, chest to the leathers, everything. So for the Wisconsin round and for Pittsburgh, we'll have Broaster Chicken as our title sponsor, and they're all coming out and they're going to bring their whole deal and everything. So we'll have the t-shirt cannon going, the whole, all of it.
I was going to ask about the t-shirt cannon. I know those guys are mostly based in Indiana, and I know Kirk Roy is there, who's probably your contact. So I know Road America is a big deal for those guys. So yeah, I figured the t-shirt cannon that Dane Westby used to shoot off, you'll be doing it now. That's pretty awesome. Good program.
Yeah. Well, I got a story on that for you, because Wayne went out with him last year and shot the t-shirt cannon, right? So he thought it was pretty cool. So I just found out actually this week he got hold of Kirk and asked him about the t-shirt cannon and where they got it and what model it was, et cetera, because he's got this idea that he's gonna go out there again and shoot MotoAmerica t-shirts, which was great. But I talked to him on the phone, and this is typical Wayne Rainey. So he found out how far Kirk's t-shirt cannon shoots, and then he went and bought one that shoots twice as far. So now Wayne will have the strongest t-shirt cannon in the paddock, of course.
Oh, I want to go shoot with Wayne then.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Kirk, if he listens to this podcast, he's going to go out and try to find one. It's going to be battling t-shirt cannons. Somebody's going to get hurt, I think. So we'll see.
You can take out an eye with one of those things.
I would, at least. So Kyle, are they going to have a setup for Broaster Chicken where, a lot of times they have a machine there where they actually serve the product? Are you going to have that as well?
Yeah, I actually don't know if they're going to be bringing any product, any food this year. Probably, if I knew we were talking about it, I probably would have found out. I don't think they are. We've been just planning on, getting their full exposure that they want and kind of doing our part. So a lot of those guys are going to be out there though, and just enjoying the races. So hopefully the weather's good.
I like the fact that Sean's already figuring out where he wants to eat.
Yeah, no, exactly. If I see that Broaster chicken machine, I get pretty excited too. Yeah, that's pretty good. But that's cool. So they're going to be elevated to a title sponsor, but the livery of the bike is going to mostly stay the same.
Yeah, mostly the same. And, that was a tricky one this year with a new bike, trying to design the livery to kind of adapt to all the different sponsors. For actually the first time, I've got all 10 rounds sold already and given some really cool programs to some good sponsors. We're going to be back with SC Project at Utah. Then it'll be Ducati Santa Barbara at Laguna. Will be Ducati Richmond out of Vancouver area for Sonoma. Genuine Broaster Chicken again for Pittsburgh. Then we have Lion Fuel, a residential fuel tank company for Jersey, and Cato Fastening, a helicoil and hardware company for Barber. So it's
wow,
got a lot of relationships to manage, but yeah, it's been really good.
It sounds like the Ducati things made that a little bit better as well.
Yeah.
I mean, people are recognizing that there's a tremendous amount of exposure with that brand, and couldn't be a better kind of program to, especially starting so late, trying to find one title sponsor for the whole year is pretty tough. So, give people an opportunity, maybe in their local area, where it only makes sense for one round, or, like dealerships that are, in certain areas. I mean, that's, it only makes sense for that. So, it's been a really good program, and now we're starting to go, okay, who's the secondary sponsor?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I have different levels of it. I got to tell you a quick story about SC Project. I remember a couple of years ago, you've had them as a brand for a couple of years. And I remember I didn't really know them. And I asked you about them at the time, just from looking at your bike. And you were telling me, oh, they make awesome pipes. Their stuff is great. And I could see that it was really well made. Well, it's one of those things where once you told me about it and I started paying attention, I see SC Project out there all the time now. I mean, it's like it really raised my awareness, seeing it on your bike and kind of understanding what that brand is all about. So that's proof positive of how that works, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I knew of it based on what I see on Marc Marquez's bike, so it must be pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kyle, you had mentioned how all the fans that you have, and, Ducati's a brand that has a huge heritage for racing, as you mentioned as well. They've been around for a long time, from back in the day when they had all those air-cooled singles and they had the L twins and all those. Is your fan base of Ducati fans, are you seeing, is it older? Is it female, male? Are you get kids interested? Where is it at? Is it a good mix?
It's everywhere. It's all over the board. I mean, it's just, it's overwhelming, honestly. It's been amazing. I mean, just the excitement around it, Ducati clubs reaching out to me, and, people that, maybe watched AMA Superbike because they wanted to watch a Ducati, and then if Ducati wasn't there, they weren't there. I mean, people are that diehard about it. So, people coming to the track saying, they came to see this bike. It's amazing that the brand has that effect on people. And, you can hear on the broadcast from race 2 at Virginia, I had rain tires and I went out and led a couple laps before everything fell apart, but you could hear the crowd cheering over the broadcast because the Ducati was out front. And I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is it a situation? Obviously, it's very early days for you with the bike and for that brand. I'm assuming that you are going to continue with Ducati for the foreseeable future and keep working with the bike and the brand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something I just dove into. I typically try to plan things out, but I kind of just threw a Hail Mary on this one, and here we are. Kind of just said I want to take a risk. I want to do something that's I could be doing exactly the same results I am right now on a Yamaha, and no one would care, quite frankly.
That's the other thing I was going to ask you is whether you're happy so far with the results that you're getting, because I've heard and seen that you're pretty delighted with so far where you're at, and obviously want to get even higher up in the standings, but so far so good. Is that kind of how you feel?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, to come out first race of the entire year, finish sixth, would have never expected that, considering what it took to get there. And now I'm so excited for MotoAmerica after, putting this electronics kit on. It's going to be a lot of work. It's not going to be a silver bullet, but, this is just investment for the future. This is investment for, multiple years. This is not, I won't be reevaluating. I'm going to be investing a lot of time and effort and resources into this for something that we're going to build on for 2020, 2021. And it's going to be a good program.
That's great.
Back to VIR for that second race there. Obviously, I know you made that tire choice, and I think you kind of confessed a little bit later that you also knew you were kind of screwed. So it wasn't just the fact that you conferred with JD Beach and he told you what tires to use. What did it feel like to just? I mean, you knew right away that you're going to be able to get out front, but you also probably knew it was very temporary. So did you enjoy the moment?
I definitely. I mean, it was a little crazy, plus 10 on the board, P1. I was like, okay, this isn't going to last much longer. So soak it in while you can. And, honestly, I was in the moment trying not to toss the thing down the road, I mean, it could have been easy to do that. I mean, who knows with as little confidence as I really had on the bike, I putting slicks on, might have just finished right where I finished anyway, So, I mean, it's just one of those deals. We kind of ran out of time because I was lollygagging on my decision, but it was kind of just like, you know what, let's go do it and see what happens. So, yeah, it was fun. It was something cool. It's been 10 years since Ducati's led a race in our series in Superbike. So, I'm pumped. I can't wait to do it for real.
That's
when
cool.
you're racing, I mean, and it's got to be different because you are the team owner, obviously. But when you're racing, how much does it creep into your thoughts of like, I really don't want to crash this thing, as opposed to it's not my bike and who gives a shit and I'm just going to send it.
It's been there a lot more this year just because we don't have spares for this thing yet. We're not very deep on spares, and Ducati parts cost more than other parts, so it's, it's in there sometimes, but, on the days where I've had success, I was able to compartmentalize that and really just keep it out of my thoughts, and I've written off complete motorcycles. I've made bad financial moves. I've made all sorts of, bad decisions and overcome all sorts of them. So, if we toss one, it won't be the end of KWR. I can tell you that.
Oh, that's good. All right, let's let Kyle get back to work. He's a busy man. He's probably working on sponsors for next year already. But we appreciate you joining us, Kyle, and we look forward to seeing you shoot next week. So enjoy your time off. I don't think you have much of it, but it'll be good to see the results of your labor from the pit test, and I'm sure your crew guys are probably exhausted and their brains are full, but I'm sure they'll put that to good use when we get to Wisconsin.
Yeah, we'll be ready.
Great.
Okay, Sean.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay.
All right, you have
Thanks,
a good
guys.
week, Sean. We'll talk to
All
you
right,
later.
you guys take care. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.